Hello and welcome to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media. I've been looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today, and I believe if this goes the way that I'm hoping, we're going to have a series of conversations because we want to talk about something that I don't know if controversial is the right word. It's certainly a little bit polarizing, and that is the idea as a business using people, using AI, using remote workers. How do all of these tools that we have available to us, and then we'll bring it back to specifically optometric practices, what's the right mix, and how do we use all these tools that we have so that we're, at the end of the day, serving our patients, which are our customers. They're consuming healthcare from us. We're serving the people that work for us. We're taking care of the business because we can't take care of our patients or our employees unless the business is healthy as well. So there's a lot of things to juggle that, quite frankly, I don't think my dad had to worry about when he opened up cold almost 30 years ago, maybe even more than 30 years ago, that we have to worry about today. So I've brought back a friend of ours, a good friend of mine, a friend of the podcast, Cory Pinegar, who is founder of Team, Teem. Teem. There's two.
Hey, I
two
get stuck on it sometimes. I'm like, it just turns into the repeat loop, giving it out. I'm like reading out my own website, getting stuck on it.
Say that 10 times fast, right?
Yeah.
Because Cory's living this world, and he's a wealth of knowledge, wealth of insight, and so I wanted to just have a frank conversation with him. So, Cory, before we jump in, for those who haven't had a chance to hear you yet on the podcast, do you mind just introducing yourself?
Yep. So first, if you haven't heard from me, you're welcome, because that's a good thing. But super appreciate the optometry community. I was introduced to Aaron probably 3 years ago now. 3 years ago?
Probably, yeah.
And at Team, our goal is to help practices, patients, the people that work in the practices and the practice owners with staffing issues. There's not enough people. Retaining people is really hard, and it is more expensive to run a practice than ever today. As you alluded to, the pressures of 30 years ago are not the pressures of today. And so we take international talent, specifically out of Latin America, in the Philippines, to help people with those business duties like scheduling, contact lens ordering, insurance verification, scribing, so that people in the practice can focus on the patients and the relationships and the clinical duties that are the most important.
Yep. So, and what I find really interesting about this, and what I found interesting about, having met you and then started working with you, is that a lot of the things that I thought, and I had preconceived notions about working with AI, working with remote workers, isn't what ended up really happening. That's the world I was picturing isn't the reality of the world. And I've kind of turned that into an internal mantra that, typically what I'm thinking probably isn't what's going to happen. It's kind of like describing chocolate to somebody. It's impossible to describe chocolate to somebody who's never had chocolate. Try it. And if you're in your car, pause this right now and describe chocolate. It's bitter, but it's sweet, and it's dark, and it's milk, but there's no milk flavor. You can't do it. Just take a bite, and then you like it, you experience it, and that's what working in this world has been for us. And we made some mistakes because it's a world we don't know. We've gone too far one way, we've gone too far another way, and we're trying to find that right middle ground balance. And I think right now in the practice, we've done a really good job of it, and we'll talk about what that looks like for us. But part of the impetus, Cory, of this conversation was quite a few articles that have popped up in July, just this month alone. There's one from Inc. magazine titled "Companies Are Rehiring Workers They Cut for AI," and the reason is a wake-up call for leaders, really talking about not understanding the work that is done and where the best place for that work to be done and how that work gets done. There was another in Fast Company that quotes Klarna's CEO that says really investing in the quality of human support is the way of the future. That article that article was titled "The Great AI Layoff is Turning into the Great AI Rehire." And it gets a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Emotional when it talks about what companies did it right way and what companies did it the wrong way. I don't think there's a really right and wrong. I think there's just discovery. and trying to understand. So this isn't about what's right, what's wrong. It's about what's best for our patients, for our team members, for the practice. And starting off with that, my goal is really to, in my office right now, I'm sure this will change, but I think this is the mindset. And I'm curious, Cory, your thoughts on this. I want to take everything that doesn't involve having to serve the patients that are in front of us out of the office. So if it's answering a phone call, if it's paperwork, whatever I can take out of the office that doesn't mean I'm dealing with the physical person in front of me. And that way I free up my team members who are there to deal with the patients who are there and to take care of them. And then I want people that are doing that non-patient facing work to be really good at that work. So I create opportunities for them. I create opportunities for the team in front of me. And then for both of those groups of people, I try to figure out efficiencies. So what can we do to drive efficiency and so that they can, one, have more job satisfaction, two, become more efficient at their job, which creates profitability. And then I can reinvest back into them because I can only pay people from a surplus of money that we have. And so if we create efficiencies, if we put people in the right spot to do a good job, which satisfies their individual needs and skill sets, patients get better taken care of, the team gets better taken care of because the practice is healthier, and then I can reinvest that money back into them.
Have you ever read the book Traction by Gino Wickman?
Yes, and we are running EOS. It's not the most exciting book.
Oh, no, it is. It is like tactical.
Yep.
It is not like this feel good, I'm going to go work really hard at work tomorrow. I have the book on my desk right behind me.
It's right behind me. Yep, I just grabbed it, and I there's even a workbook that I had gotten to go along with it. It kind of was like a Traction for Dummies because I'm not the smartest person in the world, but it's...
Hey, if you're here, then lower the bar for me. So you said something interesting, because if you think about like what gets taught in EOS of like, what is the job that needs to be done? Because we jump to, what does Laura do? What does Cory do? What does Aaron do? Then there's the article by Clayton Christensen out of Harvard that says work is all about solving a problem. You have a problem and you need it to be solved. And what that really is a job to be done. Yep. And so if we think about in a practice, all right, we need to reactivate our existing patients. We need to answer the phone for new patients. We need to verify insurance. When you actually break it out to the job to be done, instead of saying this is how we've done it, you can just say, what are the jobs that need to be done? And a blank slate before that. And then you say, what's the most efficient vehicle to get that done? Verifying insurance. Why the hell should we do that in a practice? It pulls away from the people in front of us. It's one of the biggest time sucks out there. And where your practice is at, labor is incredibly expensive. And so it is just a cost hog to your P&L, preventing you from paying the really good people that you have more. And so when we really strip down, instead of even saying this is how we do it or this is how others do it, we can say, where should we use software? Where should we use AI? Should we use online scheduling? How recare patients? Let's text them first. Let's email them. Then let's call them. And then when we really break it down, we're almost reinventing the practice from what job needs to be done to deliver incredible clinical care, great experiences, but then using AI, software, people, in-house labor, outside labor, to then get that done with the best experience as efficient as possible.
Oh, 100%. And I'll throw another curveball into that too. So if you look at just the personality types of typical roles, opticians are usually your front-end salespeople. We don't like the word sales, but they're salespeople. They're closing a sale, right? They're getting somebody to part with resources. You guys have heard me talk about this definition, right, from Daniel Pink, getting somebody to part with resources to better their life. So we're trying to sell them a pair of glasses. They tend not to be the most detail-oriented type of people, dotting every I, crossing every T, because that's not who they are. They're talking, they're engaging. They tend to be more social, which is wonderful, but menial tasks and detail-oriented tasks like pulling insurance and entering the right fields goes against what they need for job satisfaction. And then they start saying, I'm burnt out, or you get little mistakes, right? And this isn't a knock on them, but that's just not their job. Technicians, on the other hand, tend to be a little bit more detail-oriented people. If I get a social technician, they're never going to get out of the pretest room, right? They're going to have a play date with the patient scheduled, but they won't have any of the pretesting work done because they're just different people. So not only are we interrupting people business in the office with some of these tasks, like pulling insurance, we're having the wrong personality type do that job.
And the weird thing about the front desk is we just decided to say, anything that's not clinical, let's put it with two people in the front, blend it together. Oh,
With everything.
you're submitting the claims. Oh, you're reconciling the bank account. Oh, yeah, you'll be scheduling the new patients right after, and then go confirm the patients, and then call the recare list at 4:45 in the afternoon. I mean, it is like just throw it in the blender, mix it up, call it a smoothie, and make it look good. And it's built to fail.
I built to fail. I like that term. I'm going to steal it. And I think we're guilty of that that's the unintended consequence. It's, who's answering the phone? Well, it's the last person we hired and the least qualified person, because nobody else loves to do it, because we hired people that are good people, not on the phone people. Who's at the front desk? Usually one of the newest people, because that's the easiest place to put them. And that's the place where happy patients go and upset patients go. And y'all know, if you work the front desk, you know for sure what that feels like when the doctor's running 45 minutes behind and you've got nothing but laser glare burning a hole, trying not to make eye contact with the upset patient. I think that reworking the system. So walk us through this, again, going back to traction, right? So you're not saying I should sit down and say, hey, what does Mary do? What does John do? But I should say, what do I want? What's the role of the optician? What are all the tasks that they have?
I'm not even saying what's the role of the optician, because if you think about let's take the front desk blender theory. We've just thrown on more. What are the jobs that need to be done in a practice? Then you go back and say role, and then you have a role, which gives you a job description, which you allows to then say, now that I have a role with no name associated to it, can I put the right person in the right seat where they actually match? Or have I built a role for an individual? Well, then guess what? Mary Jo leaves. You're never finding that unicorn again. And it fragments the practice.
Mm-hmm. So I'm building a role. And then I probably, once I have that role, I probably should build the ideal person for the role. So what characteristics do I need for them? Right? Do I want somebody who's super detail oriented? Do I need somebody who's social? Do I need somebody who's good at problem solving and thinking on the fly? If it's a situation that involves, quick decision making, and that will help me then look for the right person, whether it's an in-office person or an out-of-office person. And when we've done this, one thing I tagged on each of those roles too is, does it have to be somebody who's in these four walls, or can it be somebody who's out of the four walls? And some of the answers are yes. You can't have a pretester who's not there. Right?
And I mean, even to strip it back before people, it's just, what's the job? And because what if, pre-texting and online scheduling, if you're ever going to reactivate an overdue patient, you have to call them.
Yep.
Now you can say, we are going to trim all the low-hanging fruit by texting Cory. I literally got a text from my dentist this morning saying, hey, it's time for your 6-month cleaning. Click here to schedule. Well, then we got the job done. I am booked, and I didn't talk to anybody. And so it's just, what is the most efficient path to create a quality experience? Then if Cory doesn't respond to that text and that email, let's give him a call. But let's just say 40% of people get scheduled between a text and an email. When we hand it over to Mary or Cory or Aaron, we're handing over less work to be done because we use the most efficient vehicles. I think Amazon's like a really good theory. When you look at shipping, the first way that they get things here is probably by a big boat from another country, those ginormous 1,000 container. That is the most efficient, like dollar per pound is probably your most efficient way. The final methodology to get it to my doorstep is a human being taking it and putting that. That's probably your least effective, but needed. Yep. But they're only using that human element, where they've then said, we've used all of the other efficient online scheduling, texting, showing our patients we care with messages, but they're automated. And then we step in to say, hey, We haven't heard back from you. Dr. Werner has Tuesday at 10 p.m. available or Friday at 2 p.m. When is best for you? Because then instead of just throwing people at problems, we're building systems and using the human touch where we need it.
Yep. And efficiencies. You made me think of how I communicate just outside of the office with my own family. I think we all have the family group text, right? And then I know my family has the group text minus Aaron. But I can send one text and communicate to 15 people, whereas pre-texting, to your point, we'd have to play a game of phone tag to try to communicate all of that. Or growing up, we had the giant whiteboard in my house so that everybody could write down what was happening. And
Sunday night, family gets together, family planning on Tuesday. Corey's playing soccer.
Yep, exactly. So just efficiencies, and it makes sense because that's how we live in our world. And a lot of those can be automated, right? The initial recalls, the initial emails, the initial texts can be automated. And then we found that before we even go to phone calls, we have a live person reaching out for doing the text. Because that's still a whole lot easier to text multiple people at once, communicate back and forth. And I can respond to texts in meetings. I don't do it when I'm on, obviously, recording these calls, but I can multitask and get work done that doesn't require a phone call.
And you think about people's communication styles today. A lot of people, if you're the patient here, I'm the dental practice, and I text you and say, hey, you're overdue, you're not responding between 8 and 5. You're in back-to-back meetings. You're with patients. And so it's not also what's just most efficient for the practice, because if we're just playing an efficiency game, we create a bad patient experience. It's also, how do people want to communicate? Online scheduling, I don't have to talk to anybody. And there's days when I sit in back-to-back meetings, I don't want to talk to anybody more.
I'm with you. So I like that. And how do you, from what you see in your world, because you work with lots of different practices and your own businesses, how do you decide, once you decide what the job is, decide who's going to do the job, decide where the efficiencies come into play, and then look at and say, hey, is this an email thing? Is it a text thing? We'll use the example of reminders. Is this do I try to automate it? Do I look at, having an AI person, phone call being reached out? Do I have a real person reaching out? How do you walk through that, question, those series of questions in your head when you're building a system?
Yeah. For me, building a business comes down to 3, because you've played the game long enough. You get into business, you're like, this is really complicated. I got to read a P&L. What's the difference between net operating income and contribution margin? And then you eventually break through this mist, and you're like, business, if done truly right, is actually very simple. And there's 3 things that need to be done to create a sustainable business, in my opinion. You have to create immense value for your customers. Someone has to show up and say, wow, that was a great experience and a great value. You go to Costco and you say, damn, that milk carton was way cheaper than Smith's. You then have to think about your people. If your people who you pay don't show up and say, wow, I had fun, I got treated like a human being, and for the work that I gave, the money that I got back felt fair. And then the final thing is the business has to produce profit. Because if you are continuously losing money, you can do that for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Eventually the bank comes back and says, hey, no more, you're a risk. And so if you don't have all 3 of those, let's just pretend that we treat our customers really well and we treat our employees, but we're losing money. Then the bank comes back and trims that. Then we got to go back and pay our employees crappy. Our employees start to turn over. Then our customers get a crappy experience. And so when I think about building the workflows, it's what do our people need to do the job well? And what do our patients need? And if we say, how would my patient want to be communicated? Well, the easiest way to reach them is text. And what would make this job to be done as efficient for Becky, for Corey, for Aaron as possible? And if we design around that, knowing that the economics of the business fundamentally work. If I see a patient for 20 minutes and I bill X dollars an hour, the business works. Then you're just designing around people value employee value and customer value. And then you just create snowballs in both of those where you've got damn good people who go to war for you, and you've got customers who continue to come back. So when you design processes, it's not around what's most profitable or efficient for the business. The math should work. It should just be around creating experiences and value for them that is damning.
Yep. And I like that you use the word experience multiple times, because I think that too often, and as doctors, we are trained from a very systematic clinical approach to things and then taught to educate patients. But that isn't always the experience they're looking for. And I think sometimes we, as servers, whether it's you're the doctor, you're the optician, you're the technician, we like to try to create an environment that we want for ourselves, and not the experience that the individual patient needs. And what I mean by that is some may want to talk a little bit longer. Some may want to be there less time. Some may want to know everything you did. Some may want to know nothing and just tell me what I need to do. Right? Give me the end goal outcome. And so I think there's an important exercise of trying to figure out what that experience is. And you can't customize it for every single person all the time, because then you're just running around chasing your tail. But you can create a framework for an experience that's going to cater to, a high 90% of your patient base and your customer base.
I also think, just as an important caveat, and I am obviously not a clinician, would never be qualified. When you say, hey, how was your visit to, your eye doctor in Salt Lake or your dentist in Salt Lake, I can't tell you, and I even work in these worlds, how my clinical experience was. I'm like, hey, were they on time? Were they friendly? Did I get my, a bunch of dry air shot into my eyes 82 times in a row and I hated it and I couldn't blink small enough for their, dots to show up? It's about the experience. And obviously you want to deliver great clinical care, but patients walking away, generally, unless their crown falls off their mouth when they're walking out the door, don't know the difference between, and we still want to do the best clinical job in the world. People come back because you knew them as a person, you were on time, you communicated with them. Experience is not, oh, I treated this myopia patient to the highest degree possible, but we were 45 minutes behind and I didn't even want to talk to the patient. Well, that's probably in the patient's eyes a really bad experience.
Yep, that's an excellent point. Putting yourself in their shoes and saying, hey, what's valuable to them? Because unless they know the whole thought process that we're going through to pick the right treatment, to figure out the diagnosis, all they heard was the diagnosis and the treatment, and nothing of it behind. At the end of the day, I just want my problem solved, and I want it solved as efficiently as possible. And quite frankly, for me personally, I'm happier to pay for the efficiency. Right? I'm happier to pay more to get something quicker. I'm happier to pay more when something's on my time, that's in a time that's convenient for me, than to try to save $1 and pay less. Now, that's not the same for somebody else.
Walmart versus Costco.
Yep, exactly.
It may be a few cents more for a milk gallon, but you walk in, the staff can walk you to it. They check you out on time, and that little bit of premium still means you get great value. But then you have a clean place, easy parking lot. Everything gives that rich experience and not just good value.
Exactly. No, that's very well put. As a business owner, going back to, because I want to kind of really focus on this idea of understanding not what people do, but what the work is, understanding the work that needs to be done. Do you ever walk in that process? Do you ever walk through and say, hey, is there some of this work that we need to eliminate? Is there some of this work that feels redundant? How do you, once you've kind of listed the work that needs to be done in the different roles, is there, and before you assign the job descriptions, do you go through an exercise of saying, hey, do I need to do this, right? Is how we're doing this the right way to do it? Is there a better way to do this? What does that process look like?
So I don't think we as a business, or I'm even an expert in that, but Elon Musk, if you read how they operate at Tesla, so like people call it first principles thinking. And one of first principles thinking is to question every requirement. Why do we do that? Oh, legal told us we had to do that. Well, why did legal tell us we had to do that? Oh, because legal thought it would be safe. Why do they think it's safe? And you realize that a lot of the reason we do things is because that's just the way we've done it. Mm-hmm. And there's some really cool stories from SpaceX where you dig down into the only thing you're bound by in the SpaceX world is by by physics. And so is the rocket going to explode? Is the rocket going to go up? Is the rocket going to return? Legal is just giving their best opinion on what keeps things safe. But if we don't begin to question why we do things, because we also have to look back, and something we do as a business is when we roll out a process, we then look back 3 and 6 months later and say, did this actually give us the impact, the desired outcome that we thought? Okay, we rolled it out and we did it well. Did it actually give us the ability to score more points in the game, drive more? And if it didn't, we should get rid of it. And because if not, we just are bloating someone's roles or some technology with a bunch of tasks that don't drive value. And so I think as you look through on here's what I'm doing to get ReCare patients scheduled as efficiently as possible, you eventually look back and say, does the 6th text at the 6th day make a difference in scheduling more people? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, get rid of it. Yep. And that then makes your business simpler, easier to run. And we look at the front desk, just have added and added and added. The OG front desk, if you and I showed up in our horse and buggy in the back day, just checked us in, walked us to the back and took our cash as we walked out. There wasn't phones, there wasn't insurance. And then we've just added and added and added and added and added, and we still call it the exact same role, a receptionist.
Yep. No, you're spot on. Unless you go through a coaching course and they call it the appointment scheduler, coordinator,
premium patient experience provider.
Director of first impressions is my favorite.
Oh, hey, I like that one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna update my LinkedIn.
But no, you're right. We kind of find things and we throw them on people. I like to periodically ask our team, what can we eliminate? What are you doing that's just stupid? Right? Or that's a better way of doing it. And my dad has a story he loves to share that when he was a teenager and in construction, he got a bunch of they got new brooms, and so he grabbed the broom head and took the handle and stood the handle on its end and grabbed the broom head and just twisted it on. And his supervisor came over and said, "What are you doing? You're doing it the wrong way." Had him undo all of it and had put the broom on the ground and then the handle, and had him screw it in by twisting the handle into the broom. Dumb. You doubled the work to prove a point that doesn't need to be done. At the end of the day, the outcome is the head and the handle are put together.
Are we married to processes, or are we married to out? Oh, I cared how many times Aaron dribbled the basketball in our game last night, or do I care that we won the game? But so interesting. We get stuck on, the process. The process should just help you win the game. Running the triangle offense put more points on the board for the Lakers. And something interesting that I want to call it that you are naturally good at, that I don't think many, especially in America, are good at, is we grow up in a capitalistic system. Capitalistic system tells us, if I can get that out there, TEEM, is more, more, more. And we then think that we should add processes and never remove them, because having more processes would make our practice better. The greatest sign of intelligence is simplicity and figuring out what actually works. I bet the vast majority of people that are listening today haven't sat down and just looked at what's everything we do in this practice.
Yep.
And then what drives good patient experience and what keeps the business afloat. If it doesn't, get rid of it. And then you trim down and people can actually focus more in those areas.
Yep.
But instead in America, you look at the baseball schedule, we've just bloated it and bloated it and bloated it and bloated it, where players don't play half of the season. Arenas aren't full.
Yep.
But then you actually have the courage to narrow down, the experience get better, the fans go to more, tickets sell at a higher rate, but it's so hard to have that courage to go whoop. But most people who do it in a smart way, even though it's hard on the surface, then realize whoa, we are more efficient because of it. We're more effective because of it. We win more.
The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being. We all know how important good vision is, but more than 1 billion people worldwide still lack access to the eye care they need. So join me in supporting Optometry Giving Sight's World Sight Day Challenge, which runs from September 1st through October 31st. You can donate, create a fundraiser, or dedicate a day's exams fees. Visit givingsight.org/WSDC or click on the link in the show notes and help give the gift of sight. "100%. One of my favorite restaurants is In-N-Out Burger, and their menu fits on half a sheet of paper. Right? It's
Raising
a
Cane's.
hamburger, a cheeseburger, not Raising Cane's, same one. And what's interesting is you cannot find an In-N-Out anywhere near a mealtime that doesn't have a super long line. And often there's another burger chain right next to it that you can be the first or second car in the drive-thru. But people still go because of the simplicity, and the experience is repeatable every time. A young person's going to be wearing the uniform. They're going to talk to me in a certain way. It's a known experience, and so my expectations are met. And I can only imagine that as they did that, somebody came along and said, well, we can add chicken to it. We can do chicken things. We can do this. We can do that. And, somebody in In-N-Out was smart enough to say, absolutely not.
I hate to slander my own favorite restaurant, Jack in the Box. I love the $2 deep fried tacos that are drenched in oil and send me to the toilet. But they have deep fried chicken sandwiches. We got milkshakes. We got the Coke Zero machine that has 8,200 flavors that all taste awful.
Yep.
And we got Korean spicy bowls at the same time. And then you look back and it's like you pick something and do it really well, or you have a menu that encompasses the whole circumference of the globe, and the line difference is Raising Cane's compared to all of these other things. It really proves the point of simplicity, but it's hard to actually rein yourself in.
It is tough, and I think that's where a lot of the having the right team around you. Jim Collins talks about focusing just on your flywheel. What do you do that you do well, and just do that well, and then the people around you, having them that in-person team. One, keeping you in check. I think you got to keep them in check too, because we all have a little bit of squirrel in us where we want to look at different things. How do you bring in, we've talked a lot about people, but when you're looking at this whole dynamic and flow system, where does some of the new AI tools come into play, right? When you're looking at the automated process, the efficiency processes, the simplicity, because it's really easy to say, well, people are really simple. They're in the office. Everything stays right here. I don't have to worry about any new technologies. I don't have to do anything. Still doing an exam on a paper chart is the easiest way to do it, which I don't disagree with. But how do you look at balancing the simplicity with a lot of the new tech that's kind of getting thrown our way?
Yeah. So I think, and there's a term I'm sure read in Forbes and Fortune today of like token maxing. And there's got to be those frontier companies that are figuring out what works and what doesn't. For me, coming back to the Clayton Christensen Harvard concept of it's just the most efficient vehicle to get the job done. What we have built during the first half of this year is tooling that allows people to get call coaching on how to convert more effectively. A tool where you can submit a denied claim and get the most effective way to resubmit it. And so it's not about using AI all the time. It's about making the tip of the spear more effective. Instead of having to be a repository for all of this information or being your own coach, because we all get stuck in our own weeds. We're looking back and saying, what are the jobs that our team members typically do? Phones, AKA scheduling, insurance verifications, revenue cycle management, and scribing. How do we help them do it in better quality and more efficiently? Well, call coaching, we don't have to put an AI person on it. Frankly, I'm 32. I don't want to talk to an AI person. I like calling my Delta rep to yell at them.
Yeah.
And if we can then help people provide a better, warmer patient experience, but move our conversion rate from 65 to 71%, we get more jobs done.
Yep.
If we submit claims more in a day, they get paid quicker and they get paid to the maximum amount of the dollar that the practice should receive, we're getting the job done more efficiently. And so we have built, to be honest, simple tooling with our years of data and knowledge that just help our people be more effective. I'll make a really awful, simple, crude analogy that it's steroids. If you go to the gym and you lift every day, you're getting stronger. You choose to then take, let's just say there was a legal form of anabolic steroids. Well, guess what? You get quicker, you get faster and stronger quicker. If you lay at home and you take anabolic steroids, you're probably going to have a heart attack. And number two, it doesn't actually do anything. And so we're just trying to take the premise of good people and then help practices get the job done more efficiently so that our job is always been about good people. Because if you don't have good people as the base, the AI doesn't have the governance and the human in the loop. But it's just about providing that tooling that actually makes a difference, not just slapping AI on it and calling it good. We sat down 2 years ago and whiteboarded this in our Salt Lake office. But until Claudebot and OpenClaw kind of came out at the beginning of the year, it felt like OpenAI and Claude were really good email writers or really good researchers, but there wasn't anything that like met the market yet. Then technology at the beginning of this year started to kind of rapidly evolve, and we found tooling that could help with those jobs we're generally doing. And our goal is to provide training and technology so that our people can be more effective, but starting with the base of always good people and good training.
Yep. No, I like that. I like that base. And I think if we take 2 steps back, I had this conversation with my dad and one of our externs the other day in the practice, and certainly when he went to school and when I started my college career, you went to the library, you looked up, some research, so you had to go find the book, then you had to find the chapter in the book, and you had to look to see when the book was published to find out how recent the research was. Well, that moved from pulling it up in a book to pulling it up in Google. And there still had to be the human element in Google saying that website's correct, that website's not correct. Just because I'm reading it online doesn't mean I believe it online. And so I think a lot of the AI tools now are just not new in a sense of, we're accessing information differently than we had before. We're just able to access it quicker. We're able to filter through it and have a little bit more of a dialogue than we had before. You really couldn't talk to a book, right? I can't ask a book a question. I got to ask myself the question and then find the answers. I could ask Google a question, and Jeeves before then, we could talk to Jeeves. And now AI just has progressed that, kind of like my watches, right? I had a regular digital watch because I never really learned how to read an analog one well. And then I got a smarter watch and a smarter watch and a smarter watch, and now I've got a Garmin who, tracks everything that I do, which makes it just easier to analyze how my running's going, how my day's going, and overall whatnot. So for me, it's just a natural progression. But to your point, you still have to have that human person in there to question, going, is this right? Is this delivering the experience, the value that I want it to deliver?
You said something, I almost want to loop it all the way back, because I am a graduate of YouTube University. I love watching the nerdy YouTube. I don't really watch TV shows. I don't watch movies, but I drench myself in YouTube. And I watched a guy named Max Economics. It's economics, but with Max at the beginning. Highly recommend checking it out. But he shared two interesting things. And let's think about fashion in jean sizes. We've gone skinny jeans, and we got narrow jeans, and we get super baggy, and we cycle. History doesn't repeat itself, but it always follows a pattern. There's two interesting things that I think are interesting to close with, because you said, as a profession, we're unsure of how we feel about AI. Mm-hmm. And if we think about past historical things that have significantly changed jobs, there's two, and there's well more points to this, but in the series he talks about, when the first person flew, the Wright brothers flew a plane compared to where they're at today. And my best friend is a Delta pilot. Beyond when they take up for those first 2 or 3 minutes, and beyond when they're setting those wheels down, they don't touch it. Plane stabilizes itself. The plane knows what airport it's going to, and it just gets in a line. When you pull the flaps, the wires pull it up. You would think that all of that automation, beyond the 6 minutes that the pilot needs to be there, would have taken pilot jobs. Those two inventions right there opened more pilot jobs than people could have imagined. Second thing, the invention of the ATM, people thought would have been the killer of the actual bank teller. There is more bank tellers today than when the ATM started. But it allowed bank tellers to actually do things like help you get a check for a car loan instead of always being stuck on, hey, let me get you your $37 of money that you need for your kid's school lunch. And those are things where people thought, oh my goodness, we're automating this job. They're not going to exist. Or we're turning out the bank teller, ATM. We're going to add online scheduling. No one's going to need our front desk. There's only one job in the last 100 years that has been fully automated. One, and this is from MIT and Harvard confirmed.
Only one job? Hold on.
That has been fully eliminated over the last 100 years. What do you think it is?
Oh, I can't.
It's a hard one, so I'm not even going to tease you.
I don't even know what direction to go.
It's your elevator person. When you used to get in an elevator, it didn't automatically go to floors. They had to take you up, stop at that section, then get it off. That is the only proven automation that has eliminated. So when we as professionals think about clinical, well, let's even take the example of the pilot. Pilots are there for when crap hits the fan. Mm-hmm. When you hear a little, my best friend was over the other night and he said, hey, I was pulling back from the gate and I heard a little weird whine. So I stopped the flight. There wasn't any sensor, but he's like, I've flown this plane thousands of times, and that little weird sound that I heard coming from our engine made me say, something's weird. We're going to pause before we push back. That's when you want your pilot there that says, this feels weird, or we're up in the air and we start destabilizing. What's a clinician there for? To help in those moments where you're like, I'm getting this read, but what can I actually make sure? And then communicate. Automation doesn't get on and say, we've got turbulence. The pilot gets on and says, hey guys, buckle up. We care about you. So you look at all of these examples. Doctors aren't going away. People want to connect with humans, but even all of the other jobs, it's about removing the mundane, which allows them to do more. And there's a lot of really good examples. The nail gun didn't eliminate the carpenter. It allowed us to build bigger homes and fancier homes.
Yep. And more efficient. And so sticking with your pilot example, I imagine it makes the pilots better pilots. Right?
Way less crashes today.
So it helps enhance everything. I like that. So and at the beginning of this, I said I hope that turns into a series, and I'm because I've got a whole lot of questions, really how to dive deeper into some of these, how to structure them, how to use them. But if I'm going to leave today with some notes that I've taken down, I think the first thing for me to do, and I don't want to do it by myself, so I'm going to engage my team, is really just start listing everything that we do, all the jobs that we do in the office, all the work that gets done, the tasks that get done. The hard part's not going to be assigning them to a person, and not going to say, hey, what does Mary do? But hey, what's the work that needs to get done here? And I imagine that list is going to get a little long because somebody's got to order pens. And then somebody has to see patients, and somebody has to bill the insurance, and somebody has to, chase down the denials and things like that. But I am curious, to dive deeper into that, and then start kind of bundling them together, I guess, as into what roles would be, what job descriptions, again, without assigning a name.
And I think what you said at the beginning, question every requirement. When we say, here's what we need to do, okay, we have pens and we get custom branded, Pinegar Optometry, Werner Optometry pen. Does that make a difference in the patient experience? If that's what people like, if we get great feedback, let's do it. But as we look at everything that we're doing, I'm taking back today to look at everything that I'm doing and saying, does it help us win the game that we want to win? And if not, drop it.
So, and for my staff that's listening to this, pens for us are very personal because everybody has their own pen that they like. So I'm not going to get rid of the pens that you like and have everybody use a universal pen. We've overcome that debate.
We've hit a sensitive subject.
I want to make sure they know I'm not taking your pens away. I like my clicky pens. My dad likes his capped pens. Some people like their gel pens. You can keep your pen. But even the ones that have. Like the new thing now, a couple of my staff likes to have black paper and then write on it with colored pens, whatever makes you happy. As long as the work's getting done and we're not breaking the bank with pens. But I do think it's important though to look through and say, hey, what's the outcome that this is getting, right? And some of it can be an emotional win, to drive job satisfaction, but there has to be a reason for it, and there has to be I like to think a positive return on whatever effort or energy and dollars we're spending on it.
I know we're out of time here, but I want to make a really dumb case of your pens here, because what did we say matters at a business? The economics have to work. The customers have to feel that. The employees have to feel engaged and cared for. If pens are what matter to people and keep them around and giving a damn, it matters. And that's a very silly exaggeration of it. But if we're making decisions on capital effectiveness of, if we centralize pens, we could save. But if that's what matters to people and keeps them engaged and your team members last longer because of those little things and your patient experience is better, those pens are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And if they're listening, that doesn't mean you can go buy a $100,000 pen.
Send it to me, and I'll buy a gift on our credit card. You know where to email me.
So, they're fun. Having a Staples close to us means that we get to experience lots of pens. I'm still losing the battle on sticky notes, though. That's where I try to draw the line. But they're winning, hands down. So, and for the record, I'm not a sticky note pen. They'll never sponsor the podcast. Awesome. Well, Cory, I really appreciate this, and I appreciate you, your insights, your thoughts. I appreciate you helping us challenge kind of status quo thinking on where it's been. This is not an easy thing to navigate on how we manage our business and how we use the tools and resources available to us appropriately. So I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you. And one note that I just want to say before we wrap up, to everybody who's listening and genuinely to everybody in the optometry community, thank you. We, over the last few years, have added thousands of customers and thousands of team members. Last week, we built a school in Brazil that we donated to further education because of the growth that we've had. That is because of our customers. That's because of our team members. I was at a concert the other day, and the guy paused and just said, "Thank you." And very sincerely, I don't take what we do for granted. I love what we do. And I genuinely can say I love this community, because without this community, we would be nothing. And so thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you have given to us. I learn equally as much every time I walk into any customer, partner, educational conversation, and that rising tide hopefully raises all boats.
That's cool. I had no idea you guys did that. That's really cool, man.
And it's because, we were able to donate that because we want to support the communities we're in. The other day, we donated a perpetuity endowment fund to a orphanage in Cambodia. So for the next 30 years, they have permanent optometry care.
That's awesome.
But it's because of our people. And if we care about people, then we just shouldn't say it, but we should show it.
Absolutely. And kudos to you, because you guys don't lead with that at any mean in your marketing, right? It's not you're not doing it to say, "Hey, look at us, we're great." I had no idea you did either of those things until you just shared. So, yeah, that's really neat. So, thank you.
Thank you, guys.